All right, welcome back to the Grammar Groove podcast. I'm Monica, and with me, as always, is the one and only Cajun.
Hey there, Monica. And hey to all our amazing listeners tuning in. So glad to be back in the studio with you.
Glad to have you, Cajun. Today, we're tackling something that sounds super simple, but honestly, it trips up so many people, native speakers and English learners alike. We're talking about those tiny but mighty words, in, on, and under.
Oh, the infamous preposition trio, I swear. Sometimes I feel like I'm playing a game of Where's Waldo trying to figure out which one fits where. It's like, you know the object, you know the location, but then you pause and think, wait, is it in the box, on the box, or under the box?
Exactly. And it's not just physical location either. They pop up in time expressions, abstract ideas, modes of transport. It's a minefield sometimes. So, let's try to demystify it a little today, shall we?
Let's do it. All right, Monica, you're the grammar guru. Where do we even begin with in?
Okay, so in is often about enclosed spaces or larger areas. Think of it like being contained within boundaries. So, you're in a room, in a box, in a car, in a city, in a country. It suggests being surrounded by something.
Right, like I'm in my office right now, or the cat is in the basket. It feels very intuitive for those physical boundaries.
Exactly. And then we extend that to larger geographical areas. In London, in Canada, in the Amazon rainforest, it's about being within a broader area.
So it's not just about four walls, but also the imaginary boundaries of a place.
Precisely. Now, for time, in is generally used for longer periods. Months, years, seasons, centuries. So, in July, in 2023, in the summer, in the 18th century. Also for parts of the day, like in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, though at night is the common exception.
Oh, that's a good distinction. At night always throws people off because it feels like it should follow the same pattern as in the morning. But English, right? Always got to have those little quirks.
Absolutely. And then we use in for expressions like in the future, in the past, in a moment. It's about a general time frame.
Okay, so in for enclosed spaces, large areas, and longer periods of time. Got it. What about on? That's another big one.
On is all about surfaces. If something is resting on top of another surface, you use on. Think the book is on the table, the picture is on the wall, my feet are on the floor. It's about direct contact with a surface.
Ah, like a flat plane. So if I put my phone down, it's on the desk. If I walk into the room, I'm on the carpet.
Exactly. It's contact with an exposed surface. Now for time, on is for specific days and dates. So, on Monday, on my birthday, on December 25th. It's more precise than in for time.
Okay, so in November, but on November 15th. That makes total sense when you lay it out like that. One's a broad stroke, the other's a specific point.
You got it. And here's where it gets interesting with transportation. We use on for public transport or when you can stand up and move around. So, on a bus, on a train, on a plane, on a ship. But remember, it's in a car because you're enclosed and typically seated.
That's a massive point of confusion for so many. So, I can be in a taxi, but on the subway. That's a perfect way to differentiate it. If you can stand up and walk around, it's on. If you're basically confined to your seat, it's in. That's brilliant.
Right? It's a handy little trick. Also, for media, we often say on TV, on the radio, on the internet, and for directions on the left, on the right.
So much on in our daily lives. Okay, I think I'm getting a handle on in and on. Now for the final piece of the puzzle, under. This one feels a bit more straightforward, but I'm sure there are nuances.
You're right. Under is generally simpler. It means below something else, often with one thing covering the other. So, the cat is under the bed, the treasure is buried under the X, I'm standing under an umbrella.
Yeah, it implies being directly beneath or covered by something. It's the opposite of on, essentially.
Exactly. It can also imply a lower position or being beneath the surface. And it has some interesting metaphorical uses too, like the bridge is under construction, meaning it's in the process of being built.
Oh, that's a good one. Or the city is under siege, if we're going for something a bit more dramatic. It's about a state or condition that something is experiencing.
Perfect examples. Another common one is under pressure, under new management, or under the age of 18. So it implies a subordinate status, a condition, or a threshold.
Wow, so it's not just physical space. I think that's where a lot of people get tangled up. They try to apply a purely spatial rule to words that have much broader meanings.
Absolutely. English prepositions are notorious for having multiple meanings depending on context. That's why rote memorization doesn't always cut it. You need to understand the underlying logic.
Okay, so we've got the basics down. In for enclosed spaces, larger areas, longer time periods. On for surfaces, specific days, dockably transport. Under for below covered by certain conditions. What are some of the classic tricky scenarios where these three really get mixed up?
Great question. One that always comes up is in bed versus on the bed. If you say, I'm in bed, it usually means you're sleeping or relaxing, like you're under the covers. But if you say, I'm on the bed, it could mean you're sitting on top of the covers, perhaps reading or just lounging, not necessarily sleeping.
Oh, that's a fantastic distinction. It's all about the context and the implied activity. In bed feels more intimate, right? More about the state of being there for sleep. On the bed is just about the physical position.
Exactly. Another one is in the street versus on the street. In American English, on the street is very common, referring to being outside, perhaps walking or living on the street. In British English, in the street is often used to describe being in the road itself, where cars drive. So, regional variations add another layer of complexity.
Man, as if it wasn't hard enough. So, depending on who you're talking to, you might accidentally tell someone you're literally standing in traffic when you just meant you're outside. That's hilarious and also potentially dangerous.
Right? Language is fun like that. What about in the team versus on the team? You often hear on the team because it's like being a member of a unit, a surface, or a roster. In the team would be less common, implying you are physically contained within the group somehow, which isn't the primary meaning.
Yeah, on the team just sounds natural. It's like you're on the list of players. Speaking of lists, is it in a list or on a list?
Both can be used, but on a list is generally more common. Again, thinking of the list as a surface or a document. In a list isn't incorrect, but on suggests being an item among others on that surface. Like, your name is on the guest list.
Hey, that makes sense. It's like the difference between a name being written on a piece of paper versus the abstract idea of being in a compilation of items.
Exactly. And let's not forget idioms. English is full of them. Like under the weather, which means you're feeling sick, or in the loop, meaning you're kept informed, on cloud nine for being extremely happy. These you just have to learn as fixed expressions.
Yeah, those are the ones that really test you. There's no logical rule there. You just got to know them. Under the weather is a classic. You can't say in the weather or on the weather and mean the same thing.
Precisely. So, what's our biggest takeaway for our listeners today, Cajun, when it comes to these prepositions?
I think it's to start with the core meaning, enclosed, surface, or below. But then to pay close attention to context and common usage. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn.
Absolutely. Exposure is key. Read a lot, listen a lot. You'll start to naturally internalize which preposition feels right in which situation. And remember, sometimes there isn't one single right answer, especially with regional variations.
And honestly, don't let them intimidate you. These tiny words carry a lot of weight, but you'll get there with practice. Maybe try to describe your surroundings right now using in, on, and under. That's a great little exercise.
That's a fantastic idea, Cajun. So, for example, I'm in the studio, my microphone is on the desk, and my feet are under the desk. See, it's like a mini grammar workout.
Boom! You nailed it. And our listeners can totally do that at home, in their cars, wherever they are right now. Just narrate your surroundings using these three prepositions.
It's a great way to build that intuitive understanding. Well, that's all the time we have for in, on, and under today. I hope we've shed some light on these sometimes confusing words.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Keep practicing, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time on Grammar Groove.
Bye for now.
We'd like to be checked.
See ya.